Okay, this is Moshe coming to you from Israel on the 28th of December. It's a Shabbat. It's 8:54 in the morning. It's cold and raining. I think, let's check the weather. I think it's going to stop in about a half hour or an hour. Let's check. No, for the next hour I think we'll have it. It's only 53, which is cold for us. No, this doesn't look good. They were predicting around 9:30, and now they're talking rain till at least 11, but that's not my immediate area. The weather changes every 5 minutes by car here. My area, they're saying about noon it'll stop. And they're talking about no more rain today. Although tomorrow they're talking more rain again, and the day after, and the day after. So we're in for it, but it's a blessing really for the crops. But it's not so much of a blessing for me and my lifestyle, because the dogs can't go out, and I can't sit outside, but it is still a blessing. Okay. I was hoping it would stop sooner, but maybe it won't even stop by then. I don't know. So I'm going to go into the live stream and see how we're doing. This thing threw my clock off today. I don't know why the sun didn't come up or something. But anyway, okay, I'm going to put some posts up there. And I'll get my email address up. Yeah, I'm not feeling my usual self today. I think it was because of the circadian rhythm thing. I slept pretty good. I don't know. Probably bounce back later when the sun comes out or something. If it ever comes out. Shabbat Shalom, Pam. All right, let me do some praise and then we'll get started. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 I think I got 7, I'm not sure. But anyway, maybe I didn't. There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 I was thinking about something. So, this is yesterday, as I told you, Russia was staging to invade Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, and Norway, and now it looks like he's staging to invade Finland also. Nobody talks about the sleeper agents and the drones compared to these things. There's a few people out there that tell you, other than me, that if China and North Korea and Iran and Russia were all staged some sorts of wars in their regions at the same time, America would most unlikely not be able to handle it. But you have to read into this too. America has Israel for a proxy in the Middle East, and that's what Israel is, sadly. And Israel has been attacking Syria a lot, but it's slowed down tremendously. We're still attacking Gaza, we're still attacking Lebanon, and we're attacking Yemen. Now, yesterday the Americans kicked in and they attacked Yemen. Now, I don't know if the British were with them. I assume it was the case. They like to do that because it puts a coding of acceptable when two great powers like the UK and America attack a terrorist state like Yemen. So America, even though UK might have only had 2 jets or something like that, they like doing this because it gives credibility to their move. Gotta understand that. Okay? So, it seems that, America takes a turn, Israel takes a turn. And you have to understand that there's only so many turns that Yemen could put up with until it becomes a disaster area. Okay? Now they've been isolating their attacks to the regions of Yemen that are controlled by the Houthis, which are not that many. But what the Houthis will do is start moving weapons and other things into the other areas. I could guarantee you they'll do that. And then Israel will have to hit in America the other areas too. And away goes Yemen down the drain. Now, they shot a missile at us again last night. This time, it was seemingly headed to Jerusalem, and it got taken down, I think, before it hit Israel. I believe Israel's using the THAAD missile system now from America. Although I was reading the Arrow 3 did take it down. Now they're using the THAAD. Maybe America wants them to test the THAAD, or I don't know. Or maybe it works more effectively. I really don't know. And America and Israel may be trying to find this out for themselves right now. You see, the Houthis take this as a victory because maybe 1 million people or something like that, had to go run to the bomb shelters last night. So they said, oh, look at us. The fact that their ports and their airport and their electrical grid gets blown up, they don't care. You see, you're not dealing with real people. You're dealing with people that are living in a delusion, calling on a false god, giving the false god credit for what they're doing to Israel and American warships and all of this stuff. Now, how do you think Jehovah likes that? Israel being attacked by these false god worshippers giving the credit to a false god? Well, you'll see Jehovah's big reaction, okay? But it's a coming, believe me. not long. So, what's next? Well, knowing Biden and his administration, what's next is a continuation of more of the same junk. He is, I'm sure, restraining Israel from attacking Iran. Okay, because it would have happened probably 2 or 3 times if he wasn't. We don't hear much about him with Gaza. The latest crack from Biden was the fault there's no ceasefire is Hamas. So Hamas is changing the terms of the ceasefire, which, why would they do that? They would do it because they're sending a signal, we don't want this ceasefire right now. Why? They're trying to hold out for better terms. They know they've got a window. Today's what, the 28th? So you've got slightly more than 3 weeks till Trump gets sworn in. So why should they throw the towel in now? Let's run it to the end and see if we could get a better deal out of Israel. See, loss of life is meaningless to them because they're brainwashed into thinking they're going to immediately go to paradise as martyrs and get their 70 or 71 virgins, whatever the number is. And so if they get killed, they win. And if they, well, when they wind up in the pit, they realize that they didn't win, but when they're walking around above ground, they believe they win. And the ones that are still alive believe they won because we're still here. The fact that the real estate is destroyed doesn't register with them. You're dealing with the equivalent of a serial killer in a psychiatric hospital for the criminally insane, because that's what they are. That's why they're called terrorists, okay? The efforts to get the Yemen government to stop the Houthis, I don't know, really. I don't believe when I read prophecy that the Yemen government will succeed in shutting the Houthis down, but will they actually take a poke at it and engage them in fighting, because that's what it's going to take? I don't know. I really don't know. They're going to be afraid because the Houthis will torture them, kill their families if they know who and where they are, you know, and stuff like that. So, I don't know. Meanwhile, what's going on in Syria? The HTS guys are walking around the streets and they go to a guy. This actually happened. Are you Sunni or Alawite? And the guy said he's Alawite. And they executed him on the spot. So they're doing a genocide. It's not fair to call it racial cleansing because it's not racial. The same race person in Syria could be a Sunni, a Shiite, or an Alawite. They're doing it as religious cleansing, I believe you would call it, if there is such a term, which I'm unfamiliar hearing, but that's what they're doing. And there's also different tribes, and they're fighting with each other. Turkey's fighting with the SDF, which is backed by America, and they're fighting with the Kurds, which is backed by America. These are Turkish-backed troops. Russia's doing nothing in Syria. We don't hear boo about Russia keeping those bases permanently. We don't know really what the status of those bases are. I have not read any reports about them being destroyed. The Mediterranean Sea base by Latakia, Syria, and the air base a long walk away from there, a few kilometers. To the best of my ability to get information, I believe that those bases are still there. They're not been blown up, but I don't know how much equipment is there, probably precious little, if any, and people are there. So I don't know what the status is. The HTS that's running Syria now have shunned anything to do with Iran. They're finished with Iran. Iraq is doing nothing. They're not launching at Israel. They said they were stopping. And they're just sitting there trying to hold their borderline and stop an invasion. The Taliban are fighting against Pakistan now, and it appears that this is going to escalate. The Taliban are ferocious fighters. They drove Russia out of Afghanistan, and then they drove America out of Afghanistan. So they too practice the behavior of a psychotic serial killer, and they're delusional, but they're also, for many years, they've been fighting wars, so they've become rather fine-tuned, well-seasoned warriors, okay? But warriors go out of their prime, I would say, at the latest mid-30s. They're not able to keep up with, young troops, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, They can't take it. They can't recover from the harsh weather like the young ones can. They can't recover from all the harsh conditions, long marches, carrying equipment, and it gets, as officers, they can function well up into their 50s and 60s because they have aides, they have jeeps and transport to travel, to transport them around. They get to use helicopters if they're high up, So they're not really worried. They're using them for their experience, education, sophistication, and they will take officers up. During World War II, they were having guys well in their 60s as very high-ranking officers in the American military. We're talking probably colonels and generals, and maybe even majors. So they had guys that had been retired from the military that they called up. They could do that. And they, had a lot of older people actually running, but as high-ranking officers, not as infantrymen with a rifle. They don't have much use for older people in that capacity. It doesn't work out well. Also, the carnage rate or the death rate is very high, and people that are over 35 are going to say, what the heck, I'm not charging, I'll get killed, where young people will, What the American military does is they train the people into being killers that operate blindly as long as the powers that be in America say go get them. They just go. There's a feeling that they have an exemption from anything as long as their leaders tell them to do it. So that's why America's military is going to be destroyed. They're running around as killers in lands far away from America that pose zero threat to America. And they go and play wipeout over there. You see, Israeli army does play wipeout, but only to our immediate enemies that are attacking us. And have a track record of boisterous claims to destroy us, and a history of attacking us, and building up of weapons, and some attacks against us. We don't run around, 4,000 or 5,000 miles away from Israel and get involved with wars. Why? America does, the UK does. France does a little bit now. They used to. Russia does. China doesn't really go that far, but they seem to stay in their region mostly. So major publications were carrying the story. I know Newsweek, The Hill, Fox News had the story. I mean, guys, this popped up probably within the last 24 to 36 hours now. It popped up in many major American news channels. The massive ones, the big ones. And I'll tell you what they were saying. They were saying there was a call from somebody in Congress that they can block Trump from being sworn in as president. Now, we have talked about this for many months, that Biden has vehicles he could use to stop Trump from being president. I don't know if he'll try it or not, but let me read you the law. And yes, they do have law on their side, sort of, kind of. And I'll read it to you. The constitutional basis for disqualification, that's what it's called with Trump. No one who has previously taken an oath to support the Constitution of the United States, which Trump did when he was president, shall hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or any state, and shall have given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof, or engaged in insurrection, rebellion against the Constitution. So this goes, I think it was January 6th, when Trump was ready to go out of office. There were people that stormed the Capitol and they occupied it and went into Pelosi's office and all this stuff, and a lot of them went to jail, right? And we all saw videos of the Secret Service guards opening the gates up to let the people in. And they accused Trump of being behind this. But the criminal cases never went anywhere against Trump for this. Okay? Trump, if he did anything, it was probably by talking about it or something like that. Trump was peeved because in his mind, he lost the presidency. It was stolen from him. And I don't want to comment. We all remember what happened, and we covered it extensively here. And, Trump's claims have, some basis. And I'm not here to get into that today, because it's not important. Because all it takes is for Congress, in both houses, the Senate and the House of Representatives, to come up with a 2/3 vote that, yes, Trump did this. They are the judge and the jury. They do not need to have a court conviction to accomplish this. They need a 2/3 vote. Now, would they get it? Boy, that's $1 million question. Let's analyze it. Normally, no. But Trump is saying, make Canada a state, make Mexico a state, buy Greenland, and take back the Panama Canal. Do you know what kind of an uproar that has rippled through the world? This is the way Hitler was behaving. Hitler was gobbling up countries like there was no tomorrow when he started, okay? And then Hitler had his allies, Japan. And Japan did Pearl Harbor. When they did Pearl Harbor, they had, I don't know what you call them, mediators, negotiators inside the United States trying to negotiate, you know, a peaceful situation with the United States while they did the surprise attack on Pearl Harbor, which it came out in the history books that it may, and I use the word may not have been such a surprise attack. Um, it may have been allowed to happen. I don't know. That's a big price to pay to let something, you know, to just allow it to happen in such a great magnitude. America was sucking wind for a good 2 years in the war in the Pacific because they didn't have the ships. So what America did is it started building these ships called Liberty ships. And I've read books about guys that were on these ships, and they were saying things like they'll never let their children go in the military after this. They slapped these destroyers together, and a lot of it was in Northern California, and I guess other shipyards. Where they built them was not highly important. It was done in America, and they used 1/4-inch steel. I'm sure it was cold rolled steel to make the hull in the boat. Okay, so they probably should have used 1 inch or something like that, or 2 inch, you know, to give the ship some resistance against attack. Now, mind you, the capital ships like heavy cruisers and battleships and aircraft carriers were getting up to 16 inches of belted armor around the hull where torpedoes would hit. They really, at the onset of World War II, nobody was really heavily, you know, using any missiles, and the technology wasn't there. They didn't have jet planes, and, you know, so they were using various kinds of torpedoes against the boats. Torpedoes could be launched from destroyers, probably cruisers, battleships, and submarines. They typically had a 1,000 to 2,000 pound warhead. And when they hit the ship, it would cause a big hole in the ship, and systems would go out on the ship. People in the ship would get killed from the shock and the blast and getting thrown into things, and part of the structure would fall down and hit people, and, you know, things like this. And so if you had 16 inches of armor plate and the torpedo hit 16 inches, you know, you're talking, you know, a huge piece of, I mean, it's probably not going to do anything to the armor. I mean, it's going to burn it and dent it and blow a piece of it out, but I doubt anything went in more than 4 inches, you know. So, yeah, there'd be a shock wave in the boat and all that kind of stuff and throw people down, but that would be minor. So they built these destroyers with just 1/4 inch of steel for the hull. And they loaded the destroyers up with every kind of weapon you could imagine. These guys had all kinds of, they had different artillery pieces. I think they had 5-inch and 8-inch artillery pieces. They probably had at least 6, if not 9 of these guns. So they could put a real whooping on other ships. Then they had lots of anti-aircraft guns around the sides of the boat. A lot of them, flak guns and 50 calibers that they could use to fight off fighter jets and bombers trying to attack the ship. And it had all sorts of weapons. It was loaded for bear. And what it was is when the boat took a hit, the crew would get killed, injured, boats would burn, sink, guys would get burned alive, all kinds of stuff like that, because they built the boat flimsy. The only chance these guys had was to strike fast and hard with all their weapons. They had lots of weapons to attack the enemy before the enemy could get a hit on them. The, the boats had no resistance to attack. The sailors called these boats tin cans. And a lot of guys got killed in them, and they were very damaging to the enemies of America. These boats were real fighting machines, but they had no resistance. They were built cheap, so they could get a lot of them, and they didn't want to use a lot of steel on them. They wanted to save that for the capital ships, which were aircraft carriers, battleships, heavy cruisers, and these boats were really able to dish out a war. Battleships had 16-inch guns that shot a 2,000-pound explosive, and it could go 25 miles maximum distance. So they were able to pelt these massive artillery shells down on enemy ships before the enemy ship was close enough to attack them. They had several mile advantage. These boats were very, very dangerous to the enemy, and there weren't that many of them, and they were very well protected. Aircraft carriers were king, and they protected the aircraft carrier, and they also had escorts with the aircraft carrier that would help. But, they had a lot of problems. Japanese kamikaze flights where they were like a kamikaze drone, except they had a pilot. When they sent these guys off of the ships to attack American or Allied ships, warships, they held a ceremony. They had a white scarf and their dress uniform, and they had a glass of sake, and they got in the plane that only would have a half a tank of fuel. No fuel to get back because they weren't coming back. They saved fuel. And these guys dying for the honor of their ancestors were going out there and killing themselves. See, so this go out and be a martyr stuff is nothing new. It's an old theme that they use to brainwash the people. Okay, back to this thing with Trump. So, the case in New York City, but it was in New York State Court against Trump for that, where he got nailed for, I think, 37 or so very, very low-level felonies, but convicted on something like 37 or 40-something counts, very high number. And when Trump won the election, what the New York State Court did is they suspended his sentencing indefinitely. Well, I never heard of anything like that. Now, I said when we first heard of this that this is bad because at any point in time, they can say, okay, now we're going to hold the sentencing. They suspended it, they could bring it back into action. So, if they're going to throw Trump out of office for what he did on January 6th, January 6th, I think the same date happens, maybe I'm wrong on that date that it happened in the Capitol, but I think the date that the American Congress returns to work is January 6th. And if they do this, and they vote for it and it passes, which is a long shot. But don't think it's that much of a long shot, because of probably a lot of people that would have voted in the Congress in favor of Trump are scared over him talking about Canada being a state, Mexico being a state, purchasing Greenland from Denmark and taking back the Panama Canal. So could it happen? You always have to leave room for the possibility, since we're in end times. Trump has not spoken to this threat. I mean, it's all over the place, guys. Fox News has been putting it on television. Now, why did all these media outlets miraculously all break the same story on the same day? Well, likely the Biden administration is looking at so the Biden administration is probably trying to figure out what the reaction of the people would be. That's why they're throwing this out there. Because it's a little bit weird that all the papers carried it on the same day, don't you agree? So they're putting it out there to see what the people think about this. And it also, if they intend to go through with it, they're probably starting to get the people to get used to this idea. Not that you're going to get millions of people used to this in America. See, remember the scripture, cursed is the man that trusts the man. And now you probably got, 50, 70, 80 million people in America, and in other parts of the world too, trusting in Trump as a great guy. He's not. He's a guy. He's one of them. Now, Trump has a cadre of 10 or 11 of the world's big billionaires, like Elon Musk. Bill Gates is now going to the Mar-a-Lago to meet with Trump. These guys are planning on becoming trillionaires during Trump's 4 years. They're not interested in billionaire, they want to be trillionaires now. So, I don't know if that's legitimately true, I suspect it. So what happens with these 10 or 11 big shots, like, the guy that owns Amazon, Elon Musk, Bill Gates, there's a bunch of them. What happens with them? Well, they're going to be very disgruntled that this opportunity was stolen from them. And they'll support Trump. Now, why would Biden want the New York State court, if the Congress did this to Trump and said you can't be sworn in? I believe the New York State court would fairly immediately come up with a decision that they've now decided to prosecute Trump, to give Trump a sentence immediately, and they would call him in for a sentencing and they'd give him a number of years in jail, so Biden could get him off the street, away from the public, so he can't lead a revolution. But this has flaws. If it gets this far, which it may or may not, remind you, you're in end times, it could. Syria went down in 11 days. Come on. So, if it does happen that Congress does it, then the court has to give Trump some sort of notice to show up for sentencing. So there'd be several weeks in there anyway, and then Trump's lawyers would try to stall it, and he'd go to the Supreme Court and all this other stuff, But the Supreme Court can't help him if both houses come in at 2/3 each. That Trump is guilty of this, then there's nothing the court can do. They can't say, well, the evidentiary process was flawed. They don't have control over Congress. If Congress votes to impeach a president, they don't have much of a say over what happened. I mean, they probably could say something at some point. I don't know what'll happen with this, but something is rotten, okay? Why did all the newspapers carry the story at the same time? Something's up. Okay, now that doesn't mean it's going to go through. They may not try it, or they may. And they may try it and it fails. They can't get the vote. So we got to watch this one. So Trump may not be president. I don't want to give this a probability because you're in end times and we don't know. Nobody would have said that Syria falling in 11 days has, anything more than a 1 or 2% chance, So it could happen. These people don't want to see what Trump will do as president towards them and towards the country. So they could do it. Now, let's talk about what would happen if they did it. Well, you would get to ruler against ruler in Jeremiah 50:51. Now, is Trump really a ruler? Well, as an elected president waiting to be sworn in, I think it's maybe we're close enough with that, okay? So I don't really know what's going to happen here with this. Just remember it's end times and we don't know. And expect many twists and turns on the path to the closing out of recompenses, bringing on the day of vengeance, which introduces the year of redemption. So, and that's also a Shanat year, so it's not a literal 360-day, 12-month year. Okay, 12 30-day months, which is what the Hebrew or Biblical Bible has. So it could be, about that period of time. As I've been telling you, our wait is not very long anymore. So what about Russia? Oh, by the way, if they pull this thing with Trump, the United States, I'm sure, will have marked civil war, okay? States will rise up against the Biden administration, and who would be president? Kamala. Because in reality, she was the runner-up. So if Trump was not eligible, the way I see it, it would revert to Kamala, and she becomes president. So the shock of stopping Trump, who won the election, from being president, and instead putting in the camel, Kamala Harris, people will find that just this is a wild time. So if that happens, I don't know exactly how the Civil War would go, but I'm pretty sure it would be violent. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people in America that are the migrant workers for the agriculture industry would take off and go home. And the sleeper agents would probably take advantage of this. And it would be the beginning of America circling and going down the drain, not just circling, actually descending. It would happen rather fast. It wouldn't take long. Americans are extremely well armed, more so than any country in the world, as far as I know. I mean, you got some lunatic countries like Pakistan where everybody's got an AK-47. So, you know, you can't really say no other countries like that, but it's a different kind of arming. America has, instead of buying cheap, junky military-grade rifles and junky RPGs, they're buying very fine-tuned pistols, rifles, okay? And they practice a lot. So they don't have RPGs, they don't have hand grenades, they don't have landmines, they don't have a lot of that stuff. They don't have ordnance. They got guns. There's a couple of people that get FFLs and buy a hand grenade or two or three, or, you know, a 40mm projectile that goes in the launcher under the barrel of an AR-15, you know, but they're so far and few between. Every hand grenade or every little missile has to have its own FFL form. So, I mean, there's very few people in the world, in America, that have that. Probably count them on your fingers, or maybe two hands or something. It's low. It could be a brutal situation. The Biden administration are definitely up to it. If they know they can get away with it, they'll do it. They've got to decide if the Congress will go for the vote, and they could do that by polling the congressmen quietly. And then they also need to take a look at what the blowback is going to be with the civil uprising. And there's a dream I had. I've talked about this many times. It came kind of in the middle of the day, so it could have been a vision too, or something like that. And it was around 2013 or 2014. And there was a, like, militia type force, civilians rising up. And they came to the gate of the White House, and the Secret Service guys opened up the gate, and they were saying, "We stand down, we stand down." And you could come in, we stand down. And they asked them where the president was, and they said he left. I think they said on a helicopter, I can't recall that, but he left and we don't know where he went, which would be a truth, you know, they wouldn't know. And that was the whole thing. So, who was the president, I don't know. I didn't see president, the name wasn't spoken. Could it have been Kamala? I don't think so. I don't know. Let me go look at the live stream. I haven't done that yet, and there's probably garbage in there that needs to get thrown out. Let me take a look. Rainy and cold where you are too, huh? You know, you need the water, but it's no fun to get rained on. Thank you for all giving me the greetings. Thank you, thank you. Georgia, I assumed the Georgia by Florida. Could be the other Georgia by Russia. Drones are popping up again in America, I understand. Submarines too, yeah. Yeah, I know that. Trump could be pardoned later, but who would pardon him? Bogus charges, I would say that's probably correct. I'm going to take a quick break for a minute. The chat's not that bad. The time frame on this isn't going to be much, by the way. A little more than a week, if it happens. It may never happen. Now we know that the daughter of Babylon is going to get into ruler against ruler. Okay? But what we don't know is if it's going to be a result of this thing Biden's cooking up with stopping Trump from being sworn in. We know it's going to happen, but we don't know what the provocation is or what the trigger is for it. Okay? That we can't tell. So, it may not be this, or it might be this. But there is that scripture in Jeremiah 50:51 that says, those of you that survived the sword, let Zion come to mind. Now, it's very hard to say, is that the final sword when the whole country gets it? Or is it the Civil War, ruler against ruler sword? See what I'm saying? It doesn't entirely lend itself to the big destruction. It's more like the Civil War would start. It also says violence in the land. And America really has violence in the land, but not in the fullness. So, violence in the land. Those of you that survived the sword with Zion come to mind. So, you know, which violence is it? The Civil War, the ruler against ruler, or the actual destruction? Or maybe the ruler against ruler doesn't lead to violence, but I would think it does. It could cause states to secede from the Union. Who the heck wants to go through 4 years of Kamala Harris? I don't know anybody. You know what I'm saying? People will say enough's enough. Now, if you got Trump out there beating the war drum, that could mean they tried to heal her, but she would not heal. They tried to apply balm to her wounds, but she wouldn't heal. So they leave. The balm to the wounds might be them showing up at the White House to get the president, but he's not there. It's very hard to get the triggers for this and exactly what's going to happen. Because if he told us, the enemies would know. They would take action. So, expect many twists and turns. If it's it, then you better start thinking about embarkation day on the ships of Tarshish, which is a good thing. And what the sail away party. You see, when you go on a cruise ship and you leave, it's called embarkation. You get on the boat with your baggage, and yeah, you'll have baggage. Yeah, you'll have gold and silver with you too. It's in the scriptures. And you'll have to go through a lifeboat drill. Chief? Which is stupid, but not that stupid. You go to your cabin, and on the back of your door, assuming these are cruise ships, which I assume they are, there's a map of the boat, all the different levels, and it shows you where you, what do they call it, where your station is for the life preservers, way station, I think. That's where you go if there's an emergency and you gotta leave the boat. So, you go to your cabin, you get, well now they changed it, now in the cabin you have a video, and it shows you how to put the life preserver on. It's not very easy, it's not very hard. And it has Velcro straps, and it has a battery operated light that flashes so people can see you in the water in case you're unconscious. It'll keep your head out of the water if you're unconscious. And It has a whistle you can blow also. So if there's a heavy fog and they can't see the light, you can blow the whistle. So you learn how to put the life preserver on in the cabin. Then you take, I think you take your life preserver with you. I'm not sure, maybe you don't anymore. And you go to the way station that is assigned to you based on your cabin number. And the crew is there. And they take your name and they check it off. So everybody has to show up. In the old days when I was cruising, you used to just be able to stay in your cabin and not go. And the whole thing back then would take 30, 40 minutes because you would go to your way station, then you'd have to stand around holding your life preserver. Then the crew would come around and everybody puts their life preserver on. And then everybody takes it off, and then they would get on the when it was all finished, they would get on the public address system of the ship, and the master of ceremonies would sit there and say, "Let's party," "Let's party," and the whole thing would be over. Everybody go back to their room to dump off the life preservers, and then you would have a sail away party. So everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people go to the upper decks and they watch the ship pull out of port, and the captain blows all the horns, and then the bands start playing, and they start serving the food and the drinks and everything. So they're called a sail away party. So I imagine the sail away party on the ships of Tarshish will not be involved with the alcohol, but the music I can certainly see, and the praise and everything else would be rather good. Eating I could see, Drinking, no. Dancing, sure, why not? So, how this comes about, I don't know. I mean, the details, how would I know? We can't get it out of the scriptures. We know it happened. I assumed they would be cruise ships, because when you look at other ships like war vessels, they're rather dangerous to put old people, young people, children. Could be warships. I wouldn't expect it, because the American military gets destroyed. I don't expect it to be warships, but tanker ships, grain ships, oil ships, container ships they're very, very dangerous to walk around, and they accommodate very few people. Like a huge 1,000-foot 1,000-foot long container ship might have 30 or 40 people working on it, that's it. So they got accommodations for 30, 40 people, I don't see that. People talk about it maybe being yachts. Doubtful. Be very disorganized. Who's going to drive these yachts? How many believers own a yacht? Like none or almost none. It doesn't make sense. There's a guy in Israel that signs people up for the ships of Tarshish with their fishing boats and their yachts, but I think it's just a scam to raise money. I don't see that at all. I don't even know if the guy still does it. And 10 years ago, he was out there. So if it does go down, this deal with Congress and Trump, and it does cause ruler versus ruler, then you should see the ships of Tarshish follow very closely, which means we probably would have seen the appearing of the sign of the Son of Man in the clouds, I would assume, before the ships leave. So we could be very, very, very close. And we should be. August 10th is 2023 is when I heard about recompenses. So to August 10th, 2024 is a year. We got September, October to September to October to November to December. And in January it'd be 17 months. So I think we're overdue, or we're due, not overdue, due. So I don't think we're going to go 23 months or anywhere near that. And you got to keep remembering to expect unexpected things. Pakistan and Afghanistan fighting is going to be very interesting. Iran may help Pakistan. These are border wars. Azerbaijan is at odds with Russia now over Russia shooting down a civilian Azerbaijani aircraft. The head of the country of Panama told Trump he wouldn't even negotiate the Panama Canal with him. And Trump was saying, yeah, we'll see about that, when the guy said, we'll never give me a canal back. You know, what would it take to take the canal back? Well, Trump would could do it with as little as 3,000 troops. He'd probably send 10,000. In the beginning, an aircraft carrier and a few escort boats and expeditionary force Marines and stuff. And what is the Panama government going to do? Sit there and say, we're not leaving? Fine, they'll say, I'll have our soldiers throw you out. Would the Panama government tell their people to shoot at the American soldiers? 99% chance they wouldn't. Nor, if they told them to, would they. All they have is police. They have no military. They have no air force. They have no navy. They have nothing. They have maybe 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tanks that they would use to protect their country's capital from being overrun in a civil war or something like that. They probably have a handful of artillery pieces for the same reason. And they have naval patrol boats to, stop smugglers and, help a ship on fire or sinking, kind of thing. These are probably boats no more than 35 feet without any weapons to speak of other than a machine gun. I'll be right there. They have nothing to fight with. Trump's reason for starting up with the canal is that they're charging American merchant marine vessels extraordinarily high tariffs to cross the canal, higher than what they charge other countries, which, basically, Panama deserves what it gets for that. They bite the hand that feeds it. And this is the mentality of all the countries in Central and South America, from Mexico down to where Antarctica is. The ones that are least culpable would be Chile, maybe Peru, I'm not sure about that one. Argentina, I think, is pretty reasonable. All the others just rip America off. That's it. That's what they do. You give them the canal, and now they charge you more money for your own ships. They're absurd people. They want their people to come live in America, and the government has to learn how to speak Spanish to their people. But from Mexico to Argentina, there's not a single country down there that would ever let you be a permanent resident or a citizen if you didn't pass the Spanish test. Not one. See how unequal they are? I know people become expats and live in these countries. They're crazy to do that. They're horrible places to live. If you're one of them and you grew up there and your family is there, it's not so bad. But if you're not one of them, you don't ever want to be there. Europe used to be a nice place to go until they started letting all the amnesty-seeking Muslims go there, and then they started rising up against the people. Yeah, we let you come live in your country, in our country, for amnesty and give you financial aid and all that, and then you turn against us. It's a common theme in the world today. Very common. Let me see what's going on here in the live stream. Oh, somebody said it would go to J.D. Harris, not. You could be right. You could be right. But I have a feeling they would do something to stop this J.D. Vance from getting it. I don't know how that would work out, but I'm pretty sure they would stop it. Or try to. Maybe you're right. But because they ran on the same ticket and he's not eligible, they may make a move to get rid of Vance. It wouldn't be so kosher, but they do a lot of things that aren't kosher legally. I don't know. I don't go around and give greetings to people I don't know. 2 John verse 9 to 11. I'm not that stupid. You think I'm in the church? I'm not a woman preacher. What is it? You say, I suffer a woman not to teach nor usurp authority over the man. That's the scripture, isn't it? Did we have a female apostle? No. We ever have a female king or queen of Israel? No. Ever have a female high priest in the old days? No. When we have an anointed prince in the next temple in Ezekiel 45, for instance, we don't have an anointed princess, we have a prince from the line of David. Somebody's using bad language about that. Let's try this. Okay, let me get my notes. So, I mean, this was serious. New York Post, Newsweek, The Hill. I think maybe the Washington Post carried it, Fox News carried it. This story is, somebody released this in the mainstream media for a reason. And that reason could be they're trying to take the temperature, or it could, of what it'll cause, or it could be that they're trying to get the people used to this because they are going to do it. I don't know what they're doing. How do you get the people used to this? I don't know, guys, but I think this is the end of the daughter of Babylon if it goes this far. A civil war would weaken the country tremendously for the sleeper agents. The other thing is, if Russia goes through with attacking Latvia, Lithuania, Norway, Estonia, and Finland, America is going to shovel troops into the European theater from the United States and possibly Asia Pacific too. And you know, why I think this thing with Putin is real is because Ukraine started hitting civilian population targets inside Russia with the long-range missiles, Storm Shadow ATACMS and so forth. And they even hit a 21. Wow. That's not a bomb, that's thunder. They shot and hit a 21-story apartment building, I think it was in Moscow. And, you know, they're knocking out Putin's oil refineries, knocking out railroads, blowing up ammo dumps, airports, planes on the ground in the airport, weapons and material supplies for the troops, transfers, and you know, Putin is not winning the war. He's managing to hold on to those pieces of Ukraine that he took, but I think Ukraine is still hanging on to pieces of Russia that they took. So I would not say Putin's winning the war at all. I think that's a joke to say that. I would say that both parties, Ukraine and Russia, are just knocking each other's lights out, killing each other, and killing each other, and killing each other. And NATO seems to be itching for a fight. Biden now comes up with $1.6 billion in aid for Ukraine. I read that this morning or last night. How much military equipment are they giving to Ukraine? I mean, they're giving so much military equipment to Ukraine, I don't know where they're going to keep it all. You know, they may run out of room. They're giving them so much. So Biden's getting set up to have Ukraine by January 20th swimming in weapons so he could run the war for quite a while longer. In other words, he may not, Zelensky may not really want to respond to Trump's demands to shut the war down. Now, if the Biden administration was going to stop Trump from being president, I don't think they would be bothering with all this aid to Ukraine. So it makes me think that there's minimally a lot of uncertainty about trying to stop Trump from being sworn in. But it might happen. Biden doesn't have much to lose at this point. He's old. He's senile. He's not going to hold office again. Okay? He's probably too far gone to go around and give speeches for $250,000 or $500,000 like the other goofball ex-presidents do. That's just a way of getting payola so he could help the companies that hire him with political issues and stuff like that using his connections. That's how I see it anyway. I think most would agree with me. So we don't know what'll happen, but the fact that all these major media outlets ran the same story at the same time is shocking. Okay? That means the government wanted we, the people of the United States, to be exposed to this. And why? One, they were taking their temperature to see how they would, behave if it happens. Number two, they're trying to get the people used to this concept and make the people believe it's lawful for them to do it. And Trump doesn't deserve to be president because of what happened on the Capitol like 4 years ago. So it's a crazy situation, but end times is supposed to be crazy. Let's see what's happening in the Middle East since I started the broadcast. It's not going to be hard to do. Let me get into my social media. The so-called Palestinians, which is a crazy word for them, in Gaza are having a rough time with the cold, rainy weather in their tents. The wind is blowing the tent, and then I guess rain gets in. It moves the flaps around. Sea water's coming ashore for those that are very close to the ocean there on the beach. And it's very cold, and I don't believe they have electric lines in the tent. Maybe they need to somehow make a fire in the tent or something. I don't know. I don't know how that works. How that'll influence anything, I have no idea. I don't think it'll influence a thing. The Hamas and PIJ could care less if these people die of frostbite. They wouldn't care. They wouldn't lift a finger. They would tell them they're martyrs. That's all they would do. Let's see what else we got here. Somebody won a lottery in California that hit for $1.22 billion. Boy, that's crazy, isn't it? They better spend it fast. There's some heavy rains in parts of Israel now, so there's some flooding in some streets, and I don't think it's, nobody's houses or cars are getting washed away or anything like that, but a lot of the drains have leaves and stuff built up in it from all the dry weather, and then when the rains first hit, they get clogged up and the streets get flooded, and this, 6 inches, 4 inches, that kind of thing. The Finnish border guards seized a tanker of Russia called Eagle S. It's part of Russia's shadow fleet. It looks like a civilian, but it belongs to Russia basically. And it was the one that was dragging the anchor to cut the 2 S-link power cable in the Baltic Sea. And it supposedly had surveillance spy type gear on it. They seized it. Putin will try to get it back diplomatically, is what he'll do. It's a Shabbat, so the news is not heavy today. But there's not a whole lot happening either. The media is not interested in carrying these stories, reporting the, executions in the streets of Syria for people that don't believe in Islam the same way as HTS believes in Islam. I mean, it's just a zoo over there. It's just a mess. It's a mess. And the Israeli intelligence community pretty much believes that when HTS stabilizes, which prophetically there's no time for, it would be many, many months or years, then they would turn against Israel. But I don't see a timeline for anything like that. I just don't see anything like that coming down. Boy, it's still raining. I wish it would stop already. It's supposed to stop soon. Anybody have any questions about anything? We're still fighting in Gaza, but very little. We do destroy certain targets in Gaza every now and then. Like they tried launching a missile, didn't do anything yesterday, I think. It's like every week they try 1 or 2 missile launches. They never get any damage. Nothing's coming out of Lebanon anymore. Nothing's coming at us from Syria. Nothing's coming at us from Iraq. The only idiots trying to attack us is Yemen. And it's just a matter of, last air raid, attack by air. America did, and probably Israel will do the next one. Then it'll go back to America and go back and forth. And after you have enough of these attacks on Yemen will start falling apart. They're hitting electric generators. They're hitting, airports. They're going to hit more ports and piers. They're doing that. And they'll hit ammo dumps. And, it's just, it's a slow process of destroying the weapons. When you take out the electric grid, you pretty much stop the radar, because this large radar, not radar for a 20 or 40 mile missile shot, but something where you want to go 200 miles or something like that. That's a pretty substantial radar, I would believe, but it needs electricity, and you're not going to run it with an Amazon, diesel generator that's, this big, You need a generator probably the size of an SUV to run that radar, so it's going to hinder their capability to launch missiles if they don't have electricity. It's going to make it harder, but it's a process of, knocking them off. It's not one airstrike or two, it's just constant. That's how we did it in Gaza, that's how we did it in Lebanon. And that's how we destroyed the weapons in Syria. It just constantly kept hitting them over and over and over and over again at different days in succession. And that looks like it's on its way. So can Russia really attack all these countries? They're staging troops and equipment, missiles and so forth, and tanks. They could. Will they? We got to watch. Could that happen at the same time of a civil war in America based on this Trump thing? Yeah, it could. I don't know. I don't know if this is really it. We don't know what's going to cause ruler against ruler. And then, is Trump really a ruler if he's not sworn in? Well, I don't know. It's a weird thing, because he's elected president, but he's not yet the president. So I don't know. Let's see what the American dollar's looking like. We haven't done that in a while. And let's look at gold and silver too. How about that? The dollar against the shekel is just under 3.7. Nothing extraordinary there. Slightly low, very slightly. Against the euro, the dollar is low. The euro's worth $1.04. That's close to par. That's low. So the dollar's not strong against the euro. Let's try against the British pound. It's $1.26. It's doing pretty strong. It's been higher. It's been $1.32, but it's doing pretty good against the British pound, the dollar. The Canadian it's pretty much about where it is. Canadian dollar is worth 69 cents. That's pretty much 65, 66, 69. It's not that revolutionary there. The Aussie dollar, $0.62. It's stronger against the Aussie dollar. So yeah, the dollar is getting a little bit strong against certain currencies. Okay, it's getting a little bit stronger. Let's take a look at gold and silver prices. Gold's at 26.20, and it's down a little, and silver is $29. Nothing spectacular there. Let's see what oil is selling at. So I'm trying to find this spot oil here. I think I got it now. You get plagued with a lot of these people that want to sell you charts, and oil's nothing great. It's running at about $70 a barrel, which is, pretty reasonably nothing spectacular. So the these things are not, the currencies are not crazy, nor is the gold, the silver, or the oil. So things are sort of stable-ish in these areas right now, but that could change very, very quickly. That's more thunder, but it's far away, so that would mean that the storm is moving. I'm not hearing the rain anymore. Let me see. Oh gosh, they're talking about it continuing till the middle of the afternoon now. That's horrible. They're talking about drizzling. I lived in climates where it rains in a nice warm weather, and it's rather delightful. You keep the windows open, you smell the ozone, you smell the rain, you hear the rain, it's nice. But in Israel, when it rains, it's a miserable experience. Miserable because it's cold and damp, and the rain, just compounds everything and makes it worse. If it rains, when it's 70, 80 degrees, it's very pleasant. But not when it's like this, it's miserable. So it's just real. Now, I don't know when we hit redemption if that will continue that way. I hope not. I think it's part of the punishment weather. Well, I'm getting another report, and they're saying that in about 18 minutes the rain will be over. Let me see what they're talking about. No, there's another Weather Channel that's saying it's going to be over in a few minutes. This is the more accurate. Let me see where I'm focusing this weather on. It's very close to here. Let me get it to another location. Down by the Galilee, let's see what it says. Why won't it? What do I gotta do to make this change? It doesn't want to change. Oh, maybe I can make a change here. Well, we'll just have to wait and see. Maybe the rain will stop. I hope it does. So I can get the dogs outside. I can get outside. I hope. Pray for me. All right. So, let me see if we have any questions. So, we're seeing a lot of things stage that are very serious, but they may or may not come to pass. This we, of course, can't be certain about. So. I think the people that come in with the insulting comments in the chat are under 14 years old. Because there's such immature nonsense they post. It's ridiculous, you know. But you gotta understand, what if prophetically time allowed, which it didn't, what would these children grow up to be like? Can you imagine? These are kids raised in a virtual world that are probably grossly unable to interact with other people in reality. You know, it's sad. All right, I guess that's what I got. I will keep you. You might want to subscribe or hit the thumbs up. I'll keep you guys advised that this business with what Russia's doing in Europe isn't making the news too much. It's real. But it's not making the big mainstream media. They don't want you to know that. They want you to know about stopping Trump from being president, though. How about that? So, we just got to see what happens. And Israel is planning on doing targeted assassinations on the derelicts running the Houthis. I imagine it'll be more difficult because of the distances involved, but we'll probably get some of them. Netanyahu likes to blow real estate up, and he likes to blow up the leaders with targeted assassinations, both of which do very little good in the short run. It just drags it out, you know. If you get rid of a lot of their top leaders, yeah, they get disjointed, that's for sure. If you blow their facilities up and their weapons storage and their command centers and their intelligence centers and all, yeah, you create problems for them. But if you blow them up, then you don't have to worry about the ammo dumps and the missile launchers and the storage because there's nobody to launch the missiles. So Netanyahu takes the very slow path, probably to drag it out because of his criminal cases. And he might be out of office too. His criminal trial is moving. He's been testifying for quite a few days already. So he might be out. So wouldn't it be funny if Trump's out and Netanyahu's out? And then I don't think they're going to try to get rid of Trump and keep Vance, because one thing Vance could and likely would do is pardon Trump and possibly be able to maneuver Trump back into the presidency that way. Although I don't think it would work, they could try it. So I don't think they get a big gain by having Vance as the president. I think the big gain would be saying that, if you see, if Trump and Vance was sworn in and Trump went out, then Vance would be the president. But if Trump's not going to get sworn in, they're not going to swear Vance in. They're just going to say no. They're a team, and Trump's out, Vance is out. And then it goes to Kamala. That's what they'll do. Whether or not the Constitution doesn't speak to if a president gets elected and he did something to violate his oath of office as per the Constitution, then you could stop him from holding office as president. That particular part of the Constitution is never illuminated enough to point to a presidential election. Nor is it illuminated enough to talk to if the president can't be, and what do you do with the vice president? So I think if they're going to do it, they're going to drop Vance out of the game also. That's what I think will happen. I'd say overwhelmingly that will happen. Because the Constitution doesn't speak to any of that specifically, so I would say for sure that he'll be out too. I would highly, highly expect that. They got no gain with Vance in office and Trump out, because Vance is sort of like Trump, and Trump's billionaire buddies would be backing, when the new Congress is in office, which is heavily Republican in the House and the Senate, then they could try to make a move with Vance to bring Trump back as president somehow. Or they could put Trump in as, maybe replace, I don't know what they're going to do. Guys, this is so crazy, we don't know what's going to happen, and expect more problems. China and North Korea are exceptionally quiet these days, and that is eerie. That's deafening. That silence is deafening. There's something going on. China's trying to see if it's time to make a move. Russia got to make a move, guys. It's just so hard on Russia what's taking place. They got to make a move. But who started it but Putin? He said, well, I'll go attack Ukraine and take it back. Well, he started the fighting. He caused the death of hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people. So he reaps what he sows. He did it. He could have chose to live in peace with Ukraine, but he didn't. So that's what I got for today, and it's quite a bit to worry about and think about and wonder about, but all things work for good for those who love the Lord, so whatever happens, we're going to be fine. And so please pray for me, Moshe, and my wife for our peace, safety, protection, joy. Pray for our healing. We always need that. Pray for my neck. It keeps acting up again like a stiff neck. I think it's from sleeping wrong. I doze off in the early evening, and I think I get the kink in the neck that way. I'm not sure. Appreciate the prayers and pray for our animals and pets that are all rescues, that they be happy, healthy, and whole. And pray for better videos. Seriously, pray for more revelations in the videos. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And I will keep updating you. I work social media a lot, and I'll keep updating you as to what's going on with our lovely Russian friends and what's going on with Iran and, you know, Syria, Iraq. I'll keep you updating you as best I can on these things. What else? That's it. So I send my Shabbat Shalom to all those who love Yeshua. And that's really the news for today. And I'm